All right, everyone, we're going to do a full walk around on the E30 shell that you guys saw in the first video. So currently, as this thing stands, the only major component that is still on the car is the sunroof. We'll most likely remove that just to put a carbon fiber piece on the top, because weight reduction is the key here. Over here to the right, you can see some carbon fiber pieces that were custom made for the build. We'll go through those in a second, but just want to walk through the full shell and kind of the vision, the plan that we have for this thing to meet all the needs that we have to keep the weight reduction as low as possible and then mount this fairly ridiculous engine that we're going to try to accomplish here. I'm going to imagine that there's going to be a lot of cutting around the engine bay. As you can see, the front core support is cut out. We removed that when we removed the engine, just because the opportunity for us to make it easier to tear down everything just made it simpler to cut that out. But there's a really nice aftermarket core support that what we'll do is we'll reinforce these brackets here, and with that, we'll be able to attach a core support that will allow us to easily pull the engine in and out. One of the things about this being a drift car, you're going to want to be able to take the engine out when you need to do any kind of modifications, upgrades, any kind of performance enhancing changes, or really just, if anything goes wrong, it's not going to be easy to work on this thing if it's always in the car. And I imagine that we'll be wanting to do a lot of tinkering with it. So the removable front core support will be super helpful to have here. It usually just mounts here as well as here down on this rail. And then it just slides right out. So you can pull the engine out very easily once you detach it from the trans. So we'll be adding that on in the near future. But really what we're going to need to do next is just degrease this whole thing. We're going to hit it with WD-40, get all the grease out. We cleaned out a lot of it already, but we're going to want to just get it polished because there's no rust on this car. That was another reason I bought it. Zero rust. And we can do a full walkthrough and you guys won't see a speck of rust, which is really nice to work with because then it gives you more opportunity to reinforce everything without having to replace any major rust damage. So as we kind of walk around to the back here, so you can see anywhere that you would usually find rust, there is none, thankfully. Yeah, get that adjusted there for the sun. You got the undercarriage here. No rust. Thankfully, this is bent. Let's get the camera to adjust that. I don't know how this got bent, but we're gonna need to probably either correct that or remove that entirely for the rear bumper. Got the trash truck behind me, so pardon the noise. Got a little bit of damage here that occurred when we were doing the engine removal. But the fun part is you won't even be able to see this. And there's a very strong chance that this is actually going to get cut. So what we're envisioning for the wide body kit that we have over here is that there's going to be a lot of modifications done to the body to make it fit. So actually what we do here is we have this one. Let's go ahead and lift it up. These are carbon fiber, custom made. They, each piece weighs about a pound or two tops. So serious weight reduction here, but we're going to line it up here. And as you can see, that completely covers what. All right. And we're going to start recording again. We just had the trash truck there, so I didn't want to bother with all that excess noise. But as you can see, this damage here, that was caused from some of the jack stands and just some slippage. We'll be fully covered by the panel, the carbon fiber that we're going to be putting on here. There's no no concern there. Actually, what is quite funny is that the way it lines up here, as you can see, gas cap there, panel, we're going to be doing a significant amount of cutting. As you can see, the way this thing is lined up, all that fender there needs to be cut out. But we're going to do that and some, because right now, stock, you can only fit 17-inch wheels on this, if you're lucky. 18s, but you're pushing it with 18s. You're gonna have some pretty serious slippage and rubbing on the panels, but the goal is to try to get 20s in the rear. I know that's pretty audacious, but I mean, this whole build is pretty ridiculous. So 20 inch in the rears for the wheels, which will probably require us to cut from here all the way around, kind of where that fingerprint is, and just cut straight across. And we'll do that RWB style cutting with the filling too, but that's gonna have to get cut. And then I also imagine that we're going to have to modify the wheel well as well. So all of the brown stuff that you see here in the rear, we're gonna probably have to move this back a little bit. Again, more cutting and reinforcing and welding to make room for the larger wheels. Won't have room for any of this stuff. All this is going to have to get cut out. These are really the only major parts left from the fuel line, but that will have to all get cut. The fuel tank, as you can see, is removed from the car as well, and we'll actually be mounting the fuel in the rear where the spare is. We'll probably try to go for a 30-gallon tank, just because you don't want to have to fill this thing up when you're out on the track. You'll want to be able to run it all day and then be able to fill it up on your way home. And moving on to the interior, the thing that we're really going to have to focus on here, which will be coming up soon, fairly soon, is the roll cage. We're going to want to do a fully reinforced cage. We don't want any sort of structural bending that could take place from this thing, because the amount of power that we'll be putting out on this, there's going to be a lot of structural designing that we're going to have to consider when going through for the cage. And it won't bode well for the future of this build if the entire structure of the car is compromised only after a few times of driving it. So we'll need to really enforce this whole thing with a cage. I imagine it's going to run through the driver's side, through the passenger side, up through the front here, up through the rail, and all the way to the back. I mean, could probably even go as far as running the cage in the front as well, just to improve that integrity and the support. And again, like we said with that front core support, this is probably where we see the need for some sort of reinforcement in the front as well. There's no major frame damage on the car itself, which is another great aspect to doing this build on this shell. As you can see, there's no major bends, tears, any kind of rust. This is just a little bit of dirt. Luckily, it's not rust, but really just a clean slate to kind of tackle this thing. All of this is going to want to be reinforced. The towers, no way we're going to trust the suspension we're going to try to put in this thing. I did see the other day on Instagram that someone pulled off a F80 rear suspension on an E30. And I sent it over to my buddy Aaron, who's going to be helping us with a lot of this build. And it just shows that people are doing crazy stuff right now with this chassis. And so if an F80 rear suspension is being done, I don't see how a G80 suspension isn't possible. It's going to be really hard. And it's going to take a lot of fabrication. But again, this also has me excited to do this thing. Over here we have those carbon fiber pieces I was talking about. These are custom made for the build. They're going to require a lot of extra cutting to fit the car to allow for those larger wheels. Again, structurally, we're going to have to cut and reinforce with welding a lot of the front too, because maybe if we can do it 18s in the rear, or sorry, 20s in the rear, 18s in the front, if possible. 19s probably just is pushing it too much with the turning radius that you'll want to get on the drift car. You're going to want to be able to have that full range of motion, and if you have too large of wheels, it just won't be possible. And what else? We have the old parts of the car in the garage here, and they're fairly heavy. The hood of the car, I think, is about 50 to 70 pounds. As you can see, just a lot of added weight in the undercarriage here of the hood. We'll want to just remove all that if possible, or modify it as much as possible. Same with the doors. The doors are obnoxiously heavy, so we're going to want to remove this just because there's so much weight in there that's not necessary. Rear trunk, fairly heavy as well. If we can somehow drop the weight on this thing, that'd be great. If not, then we're going to have to look for something aftermarket or design something ourselves. All of the original panels are here in the back, along with the bumpers. So we got all those parts just sitting in the rear of the garage. And for the spoilers, so we have the original M-Tech spoiler here. That won't be of any use for this build, so we're going to probably just give this away in a later date for a video to a viewer, as well as the ducktail carbon fiber spoiler. It won't provide us the amount of G-force that we're going to be looking for, so we'll give that away too. Again, another video, another time. But all right, so we're just going to close that up here. It's getting pretty noisy down at the garage, so I just wanted to wrap up the video up out of my balcony. But just some closing thoughts on kind of outlining the shell and the build itself. So we are going to be meeting with Grant either tomorrow or Wednesday to kind of talk through the engine, get some measurements for the shell, understand just how much modification this will require to fit the S58 in the build. He has a lot of B58 experience, so I know it'll translate pretty well. He has I think like 2 or 3 cars that are tuned over 1,300 horsepower that are B58s. So he's a very experienced tuner and engine builder on the B58 chassis. So it'll be good to learn from him, understand his experience, and know that he's a trusted partner in a sense of having a good depth of knowledge on the topic. The F80 E30 that I mentioned, I know that person is located in California. I'm hoping that they're in LA or Southern California to make it easier to go visit and kind of pick their brain on how they accomplish that. Because it's just going to take a lot of collaboration and a lot of understanding as to how a lot of this can get done, because it's a first time kind of thing, and there's a lot of learning here and a lot of opportunity for understanding what can be done and what can't be done, and then just trying to work around that. Camera just stopped recording in the middle of that. So Aaron and I are going to be meeting tonight, going over to his house to check out his machine shop, as well as what we'll be doing there with, custom roll cage, as well as a lot of the fabrication that will be done. We'll shoot some spoiler content for you guys that will be posted on the story. But then we'll be filming a full episode there as well that we'll release to kind of give you a glimpse as to what the build will look like when it goes through that shop. Getting a lot of Aaron's professional experience and insights on the matter will be great. So I'm excited to capture all that, release that out to you guys. And then kind of closing out, we want to just personally thank everyone that has been following along. Aaron, myself, John, a lot of the guys that are helping make this thing possible, that are supporting me from a content creation and ideas and helping with connections and networking. Just want to personally thank you guys, and looking forward to expanding that network and that family of people that are going to help make this build possible. And I think also it's important to know that this build won't be possible without the support of sponsorships. And that's something that I've been working on actively over the last 6 months, is building relationships with brands and individuals that can understand and see the vision of what we're trying to accomplish here for SEMA 2024. So I'm looking forward to strengthening those relationships and sponsoring and promoting content with the brands that are going to help make this build possible, because without them, it just simply won't be. So just excited for that. And yeah, just excited to share with you guys this journey. If you haven't already, subscribe for more of the content that we'll be dropping here in the future. Follow me on all social media as Unauthorized Tuner, on Instagram and TikTok as well, where we'll be posting snippets of these clips as well as sneak peeks of episodes to come. And we'll see you in the next one.